Hello, my name is Ethan Chazen. I am a New York-based organizational development coach, and I work with organizations to help unleash their people's untapped potential. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, which is how to invest in your organization's single greatest competitive advantage, your people. So let's jump right into today's webinar. And I want to pull up my PowerPoint. And the notion of investing in employees, it's logical. It makes perfect sense, right? Your payroll is your largest organizational quote unquote expense. But I'm here to tell you that people are not an expense. People are not a line item on a financial statement. Your people make all the difference in the world in how successful you are at realizing your strategic objectives. So today's webinar talks you through the process of determining how most effectively to invest in them. So what keeps business owners that I've spoken to in the thousands up at night is how do they get the most financially? How do they get the most out of their business? And especially so after the global pandemic called COVID-19 is the increase in rising costs across the board in doing business, whether it's materials, shipping, warehousing, and yes, labor. And there seems to be associated with this rising cost, a challenge that organizations face in their talent acquisition, talent management, and retention activities. And there's only two ways to positively impact financially your organization, right? Top line through revenue growth and bottom line through cost reduction. So that's why I am absolutely committed to helping organizations focus with their employees and not think about people as an expense, but rather as a tremendous competitive advantage. How do I do this? By working with organizations to conduct what I've developed as a 10-step proprietary system to conduct a human capital audit of their workforce. And what I do is look at organizations' employee return on investment. Every dollar that you spend on your people, more than 50% of that can and often is fundamentally wasted or thrown away because you're not aligning people's performance with their strengths, background, experience, skills. So I'm here to tell you there's a way to quantify or measure the successful investment in your people. So how do you determine the dollar value of worth for each of your employees' contributions to the organization? Now, you may be thinking from a sales employee perspective, that's relatively easy. You just look at how much revenue they generate through customer acquisition, and that's that. Well, first of all, that's a simplistic view of valuing sales individuals. But further, how do you apply or how do you determine the worth, the actual amount of worth of employees who are not in revenue generating roles? Well, one simple way to go about this to at least begin the process of identifying in the aggregate how much your employees generate in terms of revenue is take your total sales, divide it by your number of employees, whether they're full-time, contract, temporary, and then that gives you a number, right? It's an aggregate average revenue number per head count. Well, that's dangerously simplistic. It's a good starting point to at least size the proverbial breadbasket, but it doesn't reflect the role of the individual, their background, the depth and breadth of their contributions. In other words, it doesn't capture the intrinsic value of that individual to your organization. Why? Because it's an average. So what if for each employee in your organization, there was a way for you to truly understand all of the totality of their contributions in regards to the way that they engage with your clients. So what if we're not talking about just client acquisition or sales revenue? What if there was a way to quantify the manner in which all of your employees help to retain your clients, serve existing accounts? Maybe they step in and they save your clients that were getting ready to leave you for a competitor. What if they found new products and services to offer to your existing clients? These are the kinds of considerations that enable you to actively and insightfully value all of your employees, whether or not they're in sales roles or not. So to truly understand, to truly say, take a look at your largest organizational expense, your headcount, your payroll, to truly understand the total value of your employee, you've got to expand your methodology to consider all of the contributions that an individual makes, which is outside of the most directly identifiable revenue contribution or client engagement. So what are some of the non-client contributions your people are making to your organization that maybe you're not effectively considering into this thing called salary, right? That you're compensating them at, because we know salary and total compensation is often a horribly inaccurate gauge of an employee's true worth. Well, here is the totality of contributions. One, new ideas that they contribute to help you generate revenue or improve processes and operations procedures that reduce cost. Remember, there's only two ways to positively impact your company financially: revenue side, top line; expense side, bottom line. What if your employees are giving you ideas to positively impact top and bottom line? What if they improve your organizational processes, procedures? What if they are proactively contributing to ideas, ways, processes to re-engineer, re-architect their own job to be more productive and perform at a higher level, to remove wasteful or duplicate procedures? What does this mean? For you to rethink the value and contributions of your people, you need to shift the control in your organization from top line or manager, senior leadership, down to frontline client-facing staff. So in other words, you need to empower your people, give them autonomy to do the work that they need to do themselves. So Daniel Pink has a great TED Talk on this. He talked about a four-step approach of autonomy building in employees. You give them the power, the trust, the resources they need to choose when they do the work, where they do it, how they do it, and who they do it with. So this is a starting point. All this begs the question, how effective are you as an organization, as an executive, as a business owner? How effective are you at looking at all of the contributions that your employees are making in purpose of knowing with certainty that you're adequately or equitably compensating them? They may be bringing in their friends or their acquaintances into your organization through employee referrals. That begs the question, do you have a well-developed refer a friend employee program? Are they contributing to increases in performance in their peers? Meaning, do they hold formal coaching, mentoring roles, or are they informally going about contributing to the productivity of their peers by being a sounding board? And now, more than ever, post-COVID, with employees working in a hybrid or pure virtual basis, where there's a disconnect between employees and their managers, employees are looking to their fellow employees, their peers, for guidance, counsel, and help. Are you capturing that in your formulas for how you compensate, how you pay your employees? So what if your employee is also acting as a de facto brand ambassador? They are a reputational brand VIP who's talking positively about your business. They're getting people to give positive reviews. They're contributing, speaking, presenting at trade shows, events, and conferences as a subject matter expert. Are they giving employee video testimonials that you use in your marketing efforts? Are they actively engaged in community involvement? So what you may be starting to realize is there's a whole world of opportunity for you to rethink your total investment and in return on your employee investment by all of the collective work and non-work contributions that they're making. In other words, be less lazy about paying your people. based on an arbitrary salary that's determined by job function and market area to truly understand the essence of the totality of what they deliver to your organization. So here's another way of quantifying your employee contribution to your organization's success. So we look at their performance plan, their key performance indicators, right? The things that you use, hopefully, on a regular, perhaps annual basis to assess their performance. Those are the KPIs. So let's start here in New York City as an example with a mid-level accounting manager in his or their firm. We know that the revenue per employee, because we've done the simplistic math, is $250,000. So in that employee's 2022, their last performance review, the outcome was on their aggregate top line KPIs, let's say their top 4, 5, or 6 key performance indicators, they achieved at a rate of 85%. Then we know that the average revenue per employee, that 250,000 times an 85% employee success rate, is their adjusted revenue contribution. And that's powerful. That's a powerful way to go about gauging this. So that comes out to $212,000. So that's a starting point. Again, this is not a perfect science, but I have found anecdotally through my 13 years in organizational consulting, nearly all organizations don't even think along these lines. So the fact that you're going to start to implement these ways to benchmark your actual employee contributions across your whole organization is going to put you in a strong competitive advantage. Now, we've talked about a starting point on the revenue contribution per employee, but what about the cost side? We know that revenue minus your cost is your return on investment, your people ROI, your employee ROI. So here's how you figure this out. We attach a cost factor of the total compensation for each employee. So what we do as a way to benchmark cost is take the employee annual salary that you're currently paying them, and we apply a multiplier of anywhere from 1.2 to 1.4. So back to our example, a mid-level accounting manager in New York City with an average salary of $66,000. They work in a 20-person accounting firm that does about $5 million in sales. So we know the revenue per employee is that $250,000, and we know the cost, their salary, $66,000 times, let's be conservative and say a multiplier of 1.4. So that total cost of the employee is $92,000. So the revenue contribution per employee of $250,000 minus the cost is an employee ROI. And that's one way. Again, this isn't an exact science. You may be a little bit put off that the fact that this sounds a little bit cold and calculating. Well, how else are you going about determining the return on your largest expense or investment, as I like to say, your people? So why do we apply a factor to an average employee salary? It's good as a starting point to guesstimate the total investment through pay, benefits, maybe professional training, memberships and professional associations. So that's why we apply that factor. Again, it's a very simple, basic approach. It doesn't really address the success side of the employee's contributions. And it also doesn't really get to the heart of what we're at today in this webinar, which is how well did they perform? Well, that gets us in doing this employee return on investment to the quality of your people's work. How well is your organization doing in finding the right people and putting them in the right roles at the right time and putting them in successions to succeed and supporting them throughout their tenure? Most organizations I've been consulting with in my prior career, 25 years in corporate America, most organizations are god-awful at this. They think that their ability to place and get return on investment is based on paying the employee every week or 2 weeks in salary. That's a myopic, short-sighted way of thinking now in the 21st century with a very transitory and mobile workforce, especially in the younger generations, the younger millennials and Gen Z. So we want to get at the heart of the quality of employees. So there are 3 tools to measure the success of your organization and the quality of hire. And it's very straightforward. Performance. You take a look at the aggregate performance reviews of all your new hires in terms of, on an annual basis, all those new hires, their performance reviews, their aggregate rating scales. The second is productivity. Back to those key performance indicators. And by the way, it's a joint responsibility of the organization with its people to set up clearly measurable, effective KPIs that'll allow you to go back objectively at the end of that performance cycle or calendar year and to determine percent success achieved for each employee for each of their KPIs. The third tool in quality of hire is retention. Now I'm going to share a little secret with you. I am getting sick and tired of organizations saying there's a war on talent, or these young professionals entering the workforce aren't loyal. It's difficult to find and hire and keep top talent. No, actually, it's not. Or rather, it isn't for those organizations who I've worked with and spoken to who have made it their singular focus to create a powerfully pro-employee workplace culture. They create tremendous organization reputational brands, and then therefore they're constantly bombarded with resumes from highly qualified people who are coming in or want to come into their organizations because they're a great place to work. What are you doing in your organization post-COVID to maximize the likelihood that you're going to be able to attract top talent? So here's how we put this all together. This is where the pedal hits the metal, where we finally get to put all of what we're talking about today into your processes for assessing your success in identifying the value of your people. We take employee return on investment, we take the quality of hire, and we smush it, that's a technical term, against industry benchmarks. How are your competitors doing as an industry aggregate average? And so where does that data reside? Well, most industries have professional trade associations that benchmark this data. It's also available through a lot of other different resources, but you can take a look at your top competitors' average retention rates. You can look at their Q scores, which are branding terms that reflect their aggregate success in branding their cultures. You can look at industry turnover rate by region, by geography, by demographic data, such as the 5 generations of employee. You can look at a whole bunch of benchmarks to compare yourself and do a competitive analysis. So I want to thank you for taking time out of your crazy, insane day to hear a little bit of advice and counsel on how to start to finally think about your most valuable investment, your employees. Let me leave you with a thought. Employees are not assets. An asset is a term for a tangible item in accounting parlance that you pay money for that depreciates over a period of time. It is beneath human dignity to think of your employees as cogs in your machine. Employees, I'll say it again, are the only arena in which you have an opportunity to gain lasting competitive advantage. What are you doing to measure the success of your largest investment in your business, which is your people? Thank you so much for your time today. And if you'd like to speak with me, there are ways to reach me. I'll leave you my contact details. But I've discussed all of this in the 10 years I spent researching all over the world, the top performing organizations in every industry sector. So we're talking about over 200 countries worldwide. We're talking over 7,000 organizations. There was something that was on my mind. What, if any, characteristics to the top performing organizations all over the world? What characteristics or qualities do they share? And after about 8 or 9 years of research, it came down to one attribute, one quality that all successful financial performing organizations share. It's not ownership, it's not structure, it's not country of incorporation, it's not industry sector, products or services, or leadership team. It's having a compassionate pro-employee culture. that's where we start down the road of maximizing our organization's investment in our people. So if you'd like to reach me, please feel free to reach out via email, check out my website, give me a call, send me a text. I'd love to discuss with you your strategy for maximizing your people investment. Thank you for your time today.